Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast presented by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, bunch of podcasts already posted. The Ross Tucker Football Podcast this morning with all of my takeaways from every game, week 8 in the NFL. We move forward because I love this show. It's 3 podcasts in one. It's a college football podcast with the biggest games. It's an NFL draft podcast with the biggest prospects. And it is a college football betting podcast. All thanks to my guy, Emery Hunt, the man with the plan at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube, footballgameplan.com/2022 draft guide. And I'm getting after it early this week, Emery. I think I got the first game in probably week 10 or week 11 college football. Tomorrow night, we're recording this Monday morning. Tomorrow night, little midweek Maction. Ball State, who has some legit prospects at Akron. Keep an eye on the safety for Ball State, Bryce Crosby. He is a really, really good player. I think this will be his 53rd start. You know, with the COVID year, Emery, it's crazy how many games some of these guys are playing.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, let's say this weekend I have an FCS game. I have Monmouth versus North Alabama. And you think about Monmouth going deep in the spring season, turning right back around and playing a full fall season. So, you know, even on that side, you see it with Sam Houston, you see it with South Dakota State. More importantly, the amount of games these guys have gotten on their bodies in a calendar year is ridiculous. So it's interesting to see the war of attrition with a lot of these schools and a lot of these programs with the COVID year and the FCS programs that played in the spring. It's just been a fascinating year in college football.
It really has. Check out Emery on social. I said it already, at FBall Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. The highlight clips are always found youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, or you can follow us at Ross Tucker Pod on Twitter or Instagram. Boy, you're not messing around this week, Emery. Let's start with a huge one. Going to be all kinds of NFL scouts and executives at this one, as Liberty, Hugh Freeze goes to Ole Miss to take on the Rebs. Ole Miss is laying 9.5 points. Arguably, I guess, along with Kenny Pickett, the 2 best quarterbacks for the NFL draft. Do you have one between Malik Willis and Matt Corral that you've been more impressed with so far this year, that you like more as a prospect?
Well, it's a twofold question. I still like Malik Willis as the QB1, but I've been more impressed with Matt Corral this year as opposed to what he did last year. Last year, I felt like he was a little bit more see it through it type of a guy, streaky guy. This year, I think he's found a little bit more consistency, added the running element to his game. He's a strong runner now. So he's moving up the boards, in my opinion, in terms of my quarterback rankings, because last year we talked about this in the summer. Like, if we were talking pure prospect by definition, you know, you're looking at height, weight, speed, you're looking at elite level traits, then Malik Willis is the best prospect because he has the Michael Vick-like laser arm. He has 4.4 speed, and he also has the ability of getting better. He has the upside that you look for because this is only what, his second year of starting. So you have a lot more room to grow. And a lot of people are struggling to find a comp for Malik Willis. He seems to be, you know, a unique player, but see how someone, and I'm not comparing these guys as a one-to-one, but Justin Fields and Malik Willis's game is a little bit similar to how they play. So it's like we've seen that before. We've seen it with also Jalen Hurts. So Malik Willis, to me, could be a cross between those two guys from a prospect perspective. He's faster than Hurts, has a stronger arm than Hurts, but he's probably not as fast as Justin Fields and hasn't played a lot like Justin Fields had coming into his draft season. So Malik Willis is a unique prospect, but Corral is definitely someone I said, he kind of reminds me of Drew Lock with a little bit more speed. And I like Drew Lock as a prospect, but I think Corral to me has been more impressive because of where he came from last year as opposed to this season.
So I know, Emery, we got a full season. We'll wait till the season's over. But I'm just curious, in your head, what would be your pecking order right now with those two guys and Pickett?
Pickett is I've seen a lot of Pickett, and that's just funny because some people may call me a troll, but sometimes you just got to remind people that you've seen stuff already, and it's funny to see when the bandwagon fills up. So I found a tweet from 2019, and I was probably at that North Carolina Pitt game that happens next week on Thursday, that traditional Thursday night game. I retweeted it because I said Kenny Pickett has the juice. But nobody was talking about Kenny Pickett until, the tastemakers start talking about Kenny Pickett. Then now everybody's trying to one up, everyone on Kenny Pickett. But Kenny Pickett has always played this way. He's always been someone that can get hot, kind of like a Kirk Cousins, right? He's a little bit streaky, but when he's on, like the ball just comes out quick. He's throwing with anticipation. He's getting the ball where it needs to be. So Kenny Pickett would be third if we're talking about just those three guys. Now, there's some guys I would have ahead of Kenny Pickett. That's why I love my quarterback rankings, because we throw everybody in the mix. You may see an NAIA quarterback with a lot of raw talent in the mix over someone playing at the Power 5 level. So you just never know. But if we're talking about Willis, Corral, and Pickett, I would have them 1, 2, 3 in that order.
Willis 1, Corral 2, Pickett 3. Where's Carson Strong?
Strong would be 4. If we're talking about those 4 players, because again, there's guys that I would have ahead of Pickett and also ahead of Strong in the entirety of my quarterback rankings. So if we're just talking those 4, I will rank them in that order.
Ole Miss is laying 9.5. What do you think, Emery?
I kind of wanted Liberty to be undefeated coming into this game because it would have been a monumental matchup, but now it's more of a pro prospect matchup as opposed to a college football game matchup. Because if they were to beat Ole Miss, then the following week they got the 24th ranked Raging Cajuns. So, that's you just can't go into Lafayette, Louisiana, and get a win. So now you have a pro prospect matchup. I feel like this would be a very entertaining game. You have 2 dynamic players. So I'm taking Liberty in the points. I look at whatever the over is, I probably would lean over. But as far as the matchup at the 9 points, I can see Liberty finding splash plays just like Ole Miss will in this game. So I see a high scoring one, a close one, but a high scoring one.
Well, I will be keeping my eye on that one. And speaking of keeps, 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of hair loss by the time they are 35. More than 50 million men in the U.S. suffer from male pattern baldness. And here's the deal, dudes. There's only 2 FDA-approved medications that can prevent hair loss. Keeps offers both. I've been taking both for years. I took the pill this morning before we started recording. I rubbed the topical solution on my head. I'm trying to keep what I got. That's what these medicines can do. That's why the FDA approved them. Before it starts, start taking keeps. You'll be so happy that you did, because by the time you start to see some balding, you've lost 50% of the hair follicles in that area. Trust me, I've talked to doctors about it. If you are ready to take action and prevent hair loss like I was, go to keeps.com/draft to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's KEEPS.com/draft to get your first month free. Keeps.com/draft. Next game, Emery, it's Tulsa at Cincy. We were talking about these quarterbacks. We didn't even reference Desmond Ridder. By the way, Cincy's laying 22 points, and everybody's kind of getting up in arms because they're not winning by enough right now, not enough style points the last couple of weeks. They're still winning. I mean, I don't know. People forget how hard it is to win a football game sometimes. But let's talk in particular about Desmond Ridder. I'm kind of curious where he fits into your quarterback power rankings right now. What you've seen from him this year?
He is someone that I feel like has been at Cincinnati forever. And he has shown the ability to help out in the run game. I know last year his deep ball accuracy was up and down. This year seems to be a little bit more consistent there. But there's still something about his game that sends okay. He's a good player, and maybe he's more along the lines of a guy that can be a solid QB2, or if you want him to be your starter, he's going to be the type of starter that you're going to need a lot of help around. I'm not saying that he doesn't have the elite traits that you would see, but someone that he sort of reminds me of. I can't remember. I always forget his name. That played quarterback at the University of Miami, whose mother was Felicia on the movie Friday. Um, but he reminds me a little bit of him, and but he has the ability to run, so that will help him out. So I see him more as a solid QB2 with QB1 upside, but not someone that you can take in the first round. He's more of a second, third round type player that can help you out if in a pinch. And so for me, I personally would have him ahead of Carson Strong, and probably even ahead of Kenny Pickett, because of the ability to run. And Kenny Pickett's age, he's going to be 24 by the time the season kicks off next year. But I feel like Ritter, because of the mobility, gives you a little bit more in that regard. So from a pure prospect standpoint, I would have him probably third behind Corral and Willis. And Pickett has improved, but I still definitely think Ritter over Strong, in my opinion.
Yeah, the guy you were talking about, by the way, Brad Kaya. From Miami. Brad Kaya. Yeah, Brian, our producer, got that. It's nice when Brian's not on the air so he can Google stuff while you and I are going over it. Tulsa's got a D lineman you like in Jackson Player.
Hear me out on this, because people hear names and it's like when you post a tweet of an article and people just read the caption and don't read the entire article. So hear what I'm saying when I say this. When you watch Jackson Player play, he has the quickness and the eyes of an Aaron Donald, but I feel like he has, the athleticism of a Poona Ford. So you could see pieces together. You go back and watch him versus Navy. And I always like to watch D linemen versus option teams, because you're going to learn a lot about their eyes, their hands, and their ability to find a football. And also how quickly that's how you know I'm telling the truth. How
Bless
quickly,
you.
thank you. They get off blocks and be able to be disruptive. Player is someone that does that consistently. And so you watch him, you're like, man, this is a guy that plays like his hair is on fire. He's hella disruptive on the inside. He plays with that same energy throughout the game. So he's going to be a problem moving forward. I think people need to start talking more about Jackson Player out of Tulsa.
What about the 22 points that the Bearcats are laying?
This is a sad state of affairs we are in college football, because you just can't win games like you talked about. They have to win these games by an impressive margin, because you already saw last weekend I think it was Heather Dinich started to put out those, started to plant the seeds already. Well, Cincinnati, they bring out all these stats of how their strength of schedule as they sit number 2 in the country, and people have short memories. They forget that Cincinnati should have beaten Georgia in that Peach Bowl last year, and they want to knock them because they want to get all the big name Power 5 schools in the playoff. So I said all that to say this: they will have to win by more than 22 against Tulsa. So I will lay the points, because I know they're going to keep the pressure on the Golden Hurricane all throughout the game.
I'll say this: I will lose my mind if they go undefeated and they're not in the college football playoff. I will lose my mind. That would drive to be number 2 the whole season, to win at Indiana, to win at Notre Dame. I mean, give me a break.
Well, you saw what they did this past weekend too. Like, I mean, Indiana is down this year, and I mean Notre Dame. How really good is Notre Dame? I like, wait a minute. But in the offseason, y'all use those 2 games to say, well, if they could beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame, and they could beat this really good Big Ten potential champion Indiana team, but now y'all move the goalposts. It's gonna always move.
Auburn's at A&M. Huge game. A&M's laying 4.5. Love the running backs in this game. Talk to me but first about Tank Bigsby.
It's funny when you watch Bigsby run and then you go and look at his height and weight. I, I was like, man, I'm clearly watching someone that's, maybe 5'11", 6 feet, 225, 230. But he's listed at 6 feet, 205. You're like, man, this dude runs like he's a power back. And he's a true sophomore, but you just love the potential that he brings to the table. And he's someone that had a bit of a lull in the middle of the season, but got back on track last week in that game. We were shocked that Auburn were favored by. I guess, I don't know how Vegas knows. They just know, So Bigsby got back on track with a 100-something yard game. But you watch him just like he's explosive. He's a angry runner, and he may not have the wiggle of Kareem Hunt, but he has that same, DGAFness of Kareem Hunt when he runs the ball. They run with the same mentality, like every play is the last play of the game, almost like when we used to watch Billy Sims run. Like Billy Sims ran like he didn't care about his body, and that was fun to watch. So I think Bigsby is going to be a phenomenal back to keep an eye on this game because he's going to have another big day if they want to beat A&M.
Overcoming the odds, rewriting the playbook, delivering under pressure. The MVPs of small business lead their teams to victory all year long. Visa is proud to provide playmakers everywhere with more tools to help grow their business and help them achieve even greater success, because the more people we can empower, the more we all win. Visa, it's a network working for everyone, and what Isaiah Spiller's been doing the last couple of years is working for everyone, Emery.
And doing a lot. He's showing his versatility as always, in pass pro, catching the football, showing he can be an inside runner, showing he can get the corner, showing a lot of pro level traits. And I've always said this about his game. He reminds me a lot of Jeremy Hill when he was coming out of LSU and when he had his success with Cincinnati. I see him as a foundational back, a guy that can dot that I, be your lead ball carrier. So I'm a big Isaiah Spiller fan. He would be in the conversation. I know we had this talk about a couple of weeks ago. He would be in the conversation for me for best back in the draft and someone that you could take if you are the Miami Dolphins and you need a tailback. Isaiah Spiller could be that guy for you.
A&M laying 4.5. What do you think?
I learned last week not to go against Auburn and Joe Kane. Bo Nix, putting the women and children to bed and going looking for dinner. Bo Nix did a great job last week. He just finds big plays. However, I like A&M, so I'm laying the points with the Aggies in this one.
Wow, you hate Auburn, laying the point.
I can't trust Auburn, man, despite evidence saying, hey, you can trust us in this spot. I feel like the bottom is going to fall out, so I can't trust him. Although I do like Bo Nix and I do like Tank Bigsby and some of the players they have on defense, but I can't.
Michigan State is at Purdue. Is this line right? Michigan State's only laying 2.5.
Are they expecting them to have an Iowa moment here? We saw Purdue give Iowa some problems, but yeah, that line is correct. It's very small. There's not a lot of confidence in the Spartans coming to this game.
Yeah, let's start with a couple of DNs. I love the DN in this game. Jacob, I forget how to say his last name. Panasiuk, the DN. He's had like 2 or 3 brothers that have come through Michigan State.
Exactly. His last one was a defensive tackle, and this one, Jacob, is a really good player. And when you watch him, you think, okay, is he a hand on the ground guy or is he a stand up edge rusher in a 3-4? I know nowadays it doesn't really matter. So many multiple defenses out there at the pro level, but I do like how he stays active throughout the play, whether it's chasing the ball carrier or the quarterback, or if he's blocked at the line of scrimmage, his hands will stay active and stay up in the air, try to bat the ball down. So right now he's a midseason All-American from the Athletic. He's leading the team in sacks, and he's playing really well on both ends. I feel like where he has to get better, you want to see a little bit more consistent hand usage. Sometimes he struggles to get off blocks, and because he doesn't use his hands very well. So if he can continue to improve in that area, he probably can get even more sacks the rest of the way.
And for Purdue, I've seen this guy on tape a couple of times, and I did the Army Bowl when he was in it. He's really impressive. Their DN, George Karloftis.
And I don't want to typecast him because he's a defensive end playing at Purdue. But, man, it's hard not to see Ryan Kerrigan when you watch him and how disruptive he's been throughout. From the time he got on campus, I'm talking about spring ball. and they had the spring game, and his dude was blowing stuff up to getting out there as a true freshman and playing really well. And to what he has done over the course of his career, he's a legitimate ball player and someone that should get drafted in the first round. I don't know where people are talking about him. I don't know where the mock drafts have him, but if you don't have him in your first round, you're doing it wrong because he's disruptive on both ends. He can get pressure on the quarterback, but also throws off blocking assignments. If you have to designate how you block Purdue up front based off where Carloftus lines up, that's a premier type player. That's the type of guy you want on your defense.
It's a really good point. He's so good with his hands, too. So powerful. Michigan State laying 2.5. What do you got?
Coming off that emotional win against Michigan and, all the hype and pomp and circumstance, I just don't see them laying an egg against Purdue. I don't trust Purdue's offense enough to say, yeah, Purdue got a shot here. It'll have to be on Purdue's defense, turn the ball over. But I like Michigan State to cover this 2.5 point spread.
How crazy is it, Emery, that Walker's probably the Heisman favorite now, the running back, after what he did against Michigan? The Heisman favorite transferred from Wake Forest this offseason, and yet Wake Forest is 9-0 or 8-0, top 10 in the country. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it like that. I just see such great vision from Kenneth Walker. Speaking of vision, visibility is your first line of defense when it comes to staying safer on the road. Seeing better means spotting the unexpected even faster. If you're like me and Emery and you're driving all over the place during football season, Emery's doing high school games up here where the running back from Milton Hershey that people forgot because they didn't play last year had like 500 yards, Deion Bryant. He was awesome as a sophomore. He had no junior season. He didn't play a game. People, I'm glad you do some of the FCS games you do. And like Morgan State, people need to know about that kid. He's good. And I'm glad people now know about AutoZone Visibility Week with the $10 bonus reward when you buy 2 Rain-X Quantum wiper blades. You get a $5 bonus reward just for joining AutoZone Rewards. Then they got the $25 bonus reward when you get a Sylvania LED Fog Twin Pack. Ready to see more and drive safer? Visit your nearest AutoZone or head to AutoZone.com and start your job today. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Yeah, Emery, that kid had an awesome sophomore year and then no junior year because of COVID. And I don't know because he goes to Milton Hershey. I don't know if people know about him from a recruiting standpoint.
Yeah, and that, bro, listen. First of all, if me and you were on the call for that game together, we'd have lost it. I said on the broadcast, I want someone to have confidence in me the way Milton Hershey's coaching staff has confidence in his passing game that's not working tonight. Every time they hand the ball off to this dude, I remember mid game, I was like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me this dude's averaging 11.5 yards a carry, and they out here trying to throw the football? He had 3 70+ yard runs. So I definitely had to make a point to highlight him after I was done. Normally I don't do so unless it's just a wild performance like I did with Cy Burgos. When he had a 360-something yard day, broke the school's rushing record in the week 1 of the high school season. But this dude, and again, Milton Hershey's coach is a way better person than I am because they got the ball back with 1:18 left in that game. And I'm like, listen, if Emery Hunt was coaching that football team, we're trying to get this kid 500 yards rushing. But he did a great job. I hope some colleges take notice. Like you said, FCS, I said on the broadcast, he is an FCS back all day long. About a good mid 4.5 guy. And I was on the broadcast for one of his games as a sophomore 2 years ago. And I'm just shocked that no one is talking about him. But hopefully after that game, he'll start to hear his phones ring a lot with college scouts calling.
Nicholls is at McNeese State, a Louisiana special. I know you love your Louisiana, group of 5 and FCS ball. Nicholls has Lindsey Scott Jr. and wide receiver Deshaun Dixon. Those names sound familiar, actually.
They really do, because Deshaun Dixon has been on the pro radar for quite some time. Could have had a chance to come out last year, decided to take the free year and go back because he was going to play in the spring and then go to the NFL draft. But he decided to come back to Nicholls, and he's going to be a draftable guy. He's a guy that's going to carry a high draftable grade. He's an explosive receiver, a big play type threat down the field. And someone that tracks the ball extremely well. Lindsey Scott Jr. is someone whose game is so tailor-made for now what we see in today's game. If you like Kyler Murray, you'll like Lindsey Scott Jr., and everywhere he's been, he has won. Quiet as kept, he probably should have gotten that job after Joe Burrow at LSU. When he committed to LSU, he was out there playing really well during the spring game. Then he goes to East Mississippi Community College, leads them to a championship. He goes to Missouri, didn't really get on the field, came down to Nicholls, led them to the playoffs last year, and threw up a gang of touchdowns. This year he's doing the same thing. He is someone that legitimately works touchdown to check down. He's Kyler Murray-like. He can throw the football really well at all levels of the field, and also he's a dynamic runner. He's leading the team in rushing, and he also leads the team throwing the football and passing. So he's a tremendous talent.
Isaiah Chambers is the D lineman for McNeese.
Senior Bowl watch list guy, probably going to end up in the Senior Bowl. Pass rushing prowess consistently. So if Nicholls is going to have a chance to beat McNeese in this one, they're going to have to block him. Chambers has tremendous bursts off the ball, and when he closes on the quarterback, like it's a you almost hear the train wreck coming, because you like, man, this thing is coming chaotically all the way downhill, and he is lifting guys off the ground. So he's a power guy, quick guy, good acceleration, and one of the top sack artists in college football, regardless of subdivision.
Check him out on social media at FBall Game Plan. Certainly Football Game Plan on YouTube. We are youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. You got the draft guide, footballgameplan.com/2022 draft guide. Make sure you're listening to the Ross Tucker podcast to see how you can win a Madden this week. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We're all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.